Super Bowl
Hey, bro.
morning, Alex. Well, it's not morning for you, but
It is the
morning for
morning.
me.
I'm uh I'm Monday morning.
Oh,
I'm
is
out
it
in New Zealand,
12
man.
hours?
Yeah,
Oh,
something
you're in
like
New Zealand.
yeah, bro. I'm like 16 hours or something like that.
Okay, so I thought Manchester, but okay, New Zealand.
Yeah, man. Bit of a nomad, you know what I mean? Dotting around, seeing the world, trying to help people do this fitness thing and
I love that.
trying to get some workouts in between, you know?
I love that. New Zealand. Yeah. When did you get there?
3.5 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Like
That's
about 6 months before the pandemic. I get out here and then all countries locked down, and we're like, right, you can't make it back to the UK. What are you gonna do, Alex? And I'm like, fuck, okay, I guess I gotta figure it out. And I'm still here.
were you planning on going back to England and it just didn't work because of the pandemic? You couldn't? Is that what was that the plan?
Uh, to be honest with you, my plan is always one-way tickets. You know,
Okay.
I
I respect.
that's the way I kind of live, man. It's like I'll buy one way and I'll figure it out. And if it doesn't work, guess what? I'll buy another one way. And that's kind of
I
it,
love
mate.
that.
You know,
I
um,
will say that that's do that as long as you can.
I love it, dude.
It's
It resonates with me, and I mean, like the coaching scene. This thing is this thing is a privilege to work in this industry, man, and to see people. I don't want to sit in one
no,
place.
I no, I agree. I yeah, it certainly this kind of help can benefit anybody anywhere in the world. Uh, I always feel that as I get older, realize the importance of movement. It's easy when you're an athlete, right? Because it's you're doing your thing. Uh, but after you become an athlete, which has been I'm still very interested in athletics as a coach, right? I mean, working with weightlifting and high school strength and conditioning. But as an older man now, who I mean, I'm not an athlete anymore, but the importance of being vital and strong and functional and dangerous. I mean, I'm a big believer that a man should be dangerous. Doesn't have to be, expressing it all the time, but I think that as we age, it's important. It's the same. It's equally as important in every phase of our life for different reasons. You know, so and you can't really understand it until you're in the phase. So I'm in the old guy phase, figuring out how do I not become a victim of my own age. So it's interesting because I never thought I always up until recently, man, I was training like an athlete. I don't know for what. Yeah, I'm not, so how much can I lift? How fast can I do this? And I just keep on getting, this cycle of injury and then I realized actually during the pandemic, gym closed down, had a lot of time. Maybe when I had my gym, man, I was, 12, 16-hour days, just, grinding. I loved it. I mean, it's what I wanted to do. And then when pandemic hit, I was like, what the fuck am I doing? Like I had all this free time. Now, one of the first days we closed the gym, it was like a Wednesday, middle of the day. I was in Southern California. Wednesday, had a little house, porch, lemon tree, big, kind of these big bushes, just kind of locked. I had this little oasis in the middle of middle of the city, and I'm sitting there. It's like 1 o'clock in the afternoon on my porch, sun, shirt off, sun, drinking some water, and I'm thinking, man, I don't remember the last time I've ever had the sun on me at 1 p.m. on a Wednesday. And I was like, all right, this is pretty cool. And it kind of that moment kind of changed my path of what's important. So yeah,
It
and then
does,
I was like,
right?
man, I gotta, yeah, just it takes one, one moment and your ability to pay attention to the moment,
Mm.
and it was great. And then ever since then, I was like, all right, you know what, I gotta take an inventory of how I feel because I felt like shit. And then I got the athlete stuff dialed in. Doesn't mean I'm not learning and always trying to, refine it. I'm always, uh, but myself journey, my own journey, I never thought about it. It's just put my head down and grind. And then the pandemic was actually a blessing for me in a lot
Mm.
of ways because really, uh, it got me thinking about the next half of my life, and how many men struggle in
Mm.
that, in that time in their life. And, how do you counteract that? Like, how do you make that a positive and not a negative? So, it's been a nice addition because I've been so immersed in sports performance development that it's nice to have something else to to think about, and now with the high school, because I mean, for years it's only been weightlifting. How do I get somebody to the Olympics? And I love that. Still to this day, it's really incredible. It's incredible. It's an incredible um exercise in problem solving. It really is, and I love that. And then I've always wanted to get back into strength and conditioning at the high school level. I love that age group, especially football and wrestling. Those kids are a little bit different, um, mentality wise. American football, uh, um, and had the and then getting back into that has been great. So I'm really doing everything I want to do, which I mean, I can't ask for anything more.
Just poses different issues, right? Because like you said, you're doing everything that you want to do, and could paint a picture, and you're like, well, I'm kind of doing it, but things aren't things aren't all fucking sunshine and rainbows. It's like, all right, sound. What do I need to do then? And it's like, well, maybe we need to look after the vessel and the person within the vessel a little bit more, and definitely I've fallen victim to that in the past. I've seen other people around, and you're just like, wait, hold on a minute. We're doing what we want to do here, guys. We set off to do this. This is what we're doing. And it's just
Right.
great. And we thought everything would just be friggin' mega. And you're like, oh, okay, like maybe we need to look after ourselves a little bit more. And it's like, look after ourselves. Are you crazy? Like,
Yeah, yeah, that's one of the things. I wound up, when I built my the last gym, it was 12 years, and I wound up in a hospital twice. Um, just from nothing more than just working myself to sickness. Um, and the last time it was 2014, I think. I had this big seminar in my gym. I brought in a bunch of international weightlifter friends of mine, Klokov and Ilya Ilyin and all these guys, just arranging all that. I mean, the whole thing was crazy.
mm,
No one had ever done anything like that before. I was getting shit from the U.S. Federation for having these guys. Anyway, it was nuts.
mm,
But the lead up to that, just with everything that was going on with my business, and I had athletes that, just on the cusp of making international teams, and I'm trying to build, all these things in the business, and I'm living in the gym. Uh, and the crazy thing is, I had a house across the street, and it was empty. I never wanted to move in because I wanted to just be immersed in this thing. So every waking moment, I'm thinking about how to do this. I don't want to be distracted. So this house sat empty for almost 5 years. Um, but right, like I barely remember that seminar, and it was a really good experience. It was 4 days. And then right after it was done, and that night I went to bed on the couch in my office, and I started coughing up blood, and I'm like, all right, now you got my attention. So I went to the hospital, and doctor there, the ER doc, the emergency doc, he came in and he, did all those tests, and he knew who I was because he was a CrossFit guy. So like my gym, fairly popular. And he's like, look, he's like, when was the last time you really had a good night's sleep or ate, normal? And I'm like, I don't remember, man. He's like, look, he says, I don't see anything really wrong that I can say, you're sick in this way. He says, look, why don't you go, leave your gym, for a couple days and just rest and sleep. And then if you don't feel better, come back to see me. So I got home, I rented a room at the Ritz in Pasadena. It's a beautiful, beautiful hotel, and they take dogs. So that's the reason. So took me and my dog Ella, and we went to the hotel, and I just slept for like 2 days. And I was like, oh man, I feel good. And I'm like, okay, well, here's the lesson, right? And then that started. It didn't. I didn't do a great job even after that with myself, but I was aware, at least I was aware that, hey, maybe I shouldn't be working 16 hours every day. Even though I still did it most of the time, but it was in my brain. I wasn't ready to make the change, but at least I was aware of it. And, I'm like a dog with a bone, man. I'm not going to stop until the bone's gone. And then I guess, COVID was interesting because it took my bone away. And then I was left with like, okay, well, where am I going to spend my energy? So yeah, it was cool, man. But if I could do it over again, I don't have any regrets. If I could do that part of my life over again, I would have spent a little bit more time on my health instead of just worrying about everybody else's. I wouldn't have worried about everybody else's any less. I would have just included myself in that. And I mean, I come from hardy stock, so it's hard to kill a Waxman. So I mean, I have good genetics, so that kind of saved me. I think a lesser man might have had a harder time, but I came out okay. I'm healthy now, and I don't have any no worse for the wear. I don't think. Who knows, right? But on the other hand, I think grinding like that is important. There's a time to do that. And if you miss that window, it's tough to like live that life. Because when you get older, you're like, I don't want to fucking do this. I did it already. But you got responsibilities, you got family or whatever, then you can't just throw all that to the side and just do what you're doing, right? Or do what I did. But it's good that you're doing what you're doing. I'm glad I did what I did. I think it's an important lesson of self-exploration. You got to find it. Everybody's got to find that journey at a young age, whatever that looks like. And then just do it, and whatever happens, happens. And then you kind of evaluate after years. You sit back and you evaluate it. You're like, oh, I learned this. Don't do this. Or this is what I like. I don't like this. And then you kind of figure out, what you're going to do for the rest of your life. So keep doing what you're doing. It's good.
I appreciate it, brother.
Till you can't. Till you can't.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, man. I think we've got to be the orchestrator of our own suffering a lot of the time. I've just been like, you've just got to do this, like head down, become a little bit singular minded, and figure it out and see where it goes. And guess what? Sometimes you got to like retrace your steps and be like, okay, that wasn't for me. And you're like, great, but you've learned something along that way. And I think it is. I think it's so important, man, especially for like young dudes, right? Because we end up chasing fucking tails more times than not. And it's like if you've not got something to drive you and pull you forwards, then you're just spinning around, and usually that becomes destructive for everybody else as well as yourself, right? So it's like no. Like, what do you like to do? Oh, tiddlywinks. Okay, great. Become absolutely goddamn obsessed with that thing for at least a little time, and then you can pull
Yeah.
out and find balance. But initially, you're going to have to be that obsessed, imbalanced individual, right?
Yeah. I think that I'm very careful about sounding like the old guy saying, well, these times are shitty. The other times are, I'm not that guy, but I think that in the modern age, the pursuit of mastery in anything isn't really encouraged, because I think our sense of time has shortened. Like the patience with time has shortened. So, as it becoming a master, or at least you know, the pursuit of mastery is this long journey, right? It's this never ending pursuit. And in the beginning, you're not that. You're not close to it. Some would say you never get there, but you can get closer. So I think there's a point in time where you get close enough to where it becomes. I always think like in the Matrix when Neo gets implanted. He does kung fu. He's like, oh man, I know kung fu. Right? Just does not thinking about it, just sitting there doing his thing. I'm like, that's when you get to that point. It takes time, and the way things are set up now, seemingly, we're not allowing people to have that time to develop, because the metrics of what success is and isn't has changed a little bit. It's this, uh, make this amount of money right now, have this many followers, have this, these metrics are not conducive to this long-term path of development and mastery. So I think it really takes a conscious effort as a young man, which is hard because we don't have some of that sensibility. Our um, our brains aren't fully formed at that age to make these tough decisions. Sometimes we're forced into it, right? So it's made for you, but a lot of times it's not. So it's hard for the young guy to say, I'm just gonna dive into this thing and I'm just gonna grind. When all these other things are distractions and opportunities, and then what happens is you become this jack of all trades, right? Just really, I'm okay in this, I'm okay in that, and at the end of the day, you don't really have a skill. I always say if I'm homeless, which I have been, um, or if I move, like I get my skill comes with me, right? I can do what I do anywhere. It's when I left California. I'm like, Waxman's gym isn't a building in California. It's me. It's the information. So like, but that took a long time to get to that point. And I fear that we're not allowing people that runway anymore. Because the things like to me, when I grew up, like it was really important for me to try to be great at something. And I saw watching my dad. He was really good. He was great, and he had two skills. So he was an electrician, and he did jewelry. That on the side, and watching him, become like studying with some really masterful guys and honing his craft. And I was a young kid when that was going on, and that was impactful. And my mom was a teacher. And she watching her process on really getting kids much better, and they did this for 40 years, the same thing, right? And that was, that's impactful. So I was like, man, I want to do that. I don't want to do jewelry. I don't want to do construction. I don't want to be a elementary school teacher, but I want to be as good as they were in something else. And it just happened to be coaching. My dad was my coach too. He was my first baseball coach. So, watching him, and even today, he's 80, right? He's still runs the Pee Wee League, and teaching the kids. He's got a process of teaching them how to throw and teaching them how to catch, teaching them how to hit a ball. And I mean, 80 years old, still fucking teaching these kids. And we're walking down the street in the neighborhood whenever I go home, and you see like these grown ass adults, Coach Lenny, I'm so and so. You coached me back then, and thank you so much. Like, fuck, that's what it's about, right? Like, it's that to affect somebody's trajectory. Oh, I went down and played college baseball and all this stuff, and thank you so much. I'm like, man, my dad just affected this dude's life forever. I'm like, I want some of that. So, but it takes time to have that level of impact on people. And I hope, it's we don't spend I don't like I just everybody's in a rush. For what? Like, for money, for for things that are important. You can't not have that stuff, but that can't be the thing. That's got to be a symptom of the thing that you do. Shouldn't be the thing.
I also think
But
we bastardize failure a little bit more, right? It's like, oh, you can't be seen to fail or
yeah,
to be developing, not be completely developed, and he's just like, I'm not gonna walk into a new skill and be fucking good at it. I'm gonna be shit for a while, and that's the whole point. And I think people are scared to do things like that. And there's a different sense of entitlement. It's like, no, I'm only gonna try something that I know I'm gonna be good at straight away. I'm like, that's not how life works, guys. Like, now we're kind of just kind of at the crossroads of just like, paralysis by analysis of like, what do I do? What do I do? What am I going to be good at? I was like, it doesn't matter what you're going to be good at. Do something and just like pursue the shit out of that. And like you said, the skill that you developed in that craft is not just completely like just good in that environment. You can relate it to everything else. You can pull it out. You can go, okay, I was in the corporate scene for 9 years. Didn't really work out. Cool. I'm going to go do something else. But the shit that you learn is going to stay with you, man. It's in you, and it develops that. It's a page in a book, and we need that rather than just, oh, I'm going to wait for something I'm good at. Fuck, I'm still waiting for the thing I'm good at, dude.
yeah, failure is interesting because in times before social media and things like that, I mean, I could fail and nobody would really know other than me. And I think, especially when we're young, that's not even when we're young, at any age. Like, we don't want to be the guy on the stage with our pants down our ankles. It's just, I don't care who you are, that's hard. And I think that there's this inherent fear of, because when we fail for everybody to see. And I think that, even as an older guy who's had failure and success, and generally speaking, I don't really like, outside of my crew, like the people that I love and love me, I generally don't give a fuck about what they think. But that's not entirely true. I mean, like when something happens and it's out in the ether, it's difficult. I mean, it's fine. But as a young guy, without that time of maturity and armor that you build, it's hard. So, like, to take a chance to do something, and there's a good possibility that you can fail. It's hard. Like, I understand like why people don't want to put themselves out there, and they want to be in the comfort zone because, well, I know I can do this. But to your point, man, it's you're really missing something if you don't do things that are hard. Like, I struggle with this with jujitsu. Um, I've stopped and started with it mostly because of physical. Because I had my knee replaced last May, and before that my hip. So like I was doing jujitsu when I through all this, and it was hard. I couldn't do it without excruciating pain. But more than that, it was really frustrating to me because I'm a good athlete, you know, but all the things that I do, I'm good at. And you know, to me, I want to do jujitsu because I'm not good at it. And it's really fucking frustrating. And it's something that I feel is a worthwhile pursuit for the rest of my life. But I suck, you know, compared to the guys that are around me. Um, and it's hard to want to go back and get on that mat because I know I suck. And then I'm gonna suck for a long time. And it's everything is hard. It's not like tying your shoe. Everything else I do physically is tying my shoe. This is not. You know, this is trying to tie my shoe with mittens. You know, and I'm like, what the fuck am I supposed? How am I supposed to do this? And I'm like, it feels so awkward. I can't grab the goddamn. I can grab a lace. I know how to grab a lace, but I can't do it. That's what jujitsu feels like. And man, it's hard. But it's the same reason why like you said something about I forget the words you used, but uh you know that struggle, that discomfort, you know, the ability to, you know, to be uncomfortable. Uh you know, we have to interject it into our lives. And I think it's important, like especially, you know, that grind, like in the middle of like doing hard things when you're young. And then as we get older, you know, when we forget about the importance of that discomfort, you know, and we don't inject it into our lives anymore. So to me, like cold, like ice baths and pushing the prow for me is awful. But that's like, it's something I have to do. And then, you know, like jujitsu, you know, things that uh are really uncomfortable and difficult, but they're not going to kill me. Right? But I need that in my life because I'm not getting up at 4 a.m. and tending to the fucking farm. You know, I'm not doing that. So what am I going to do? What's the analog to that in the modern world? So I think, you know, finding those things when we don't have them, and then when we do have them, doing them a little bit smarter. You know, like you saying, you find it a time to train, like for yourself, you know, and all the things that you got going on. It's good that you do that. It's important to do that. Balance is a hard thing to. I've never been good at it, but it's a good thing to pursue.
No, I've never been good at it, dude. Like honestly, never been good at it, but it's more like a necessity. I see it as a necessity, you know, and I think it's good to surround yourself with the people that understand of like, you know, I'm kind of the guy who's like, hey, I just gotta go suffer for a minute. You're like, what do you mean? I was like, well, I'm pretty dyslexic. I gotta go read for 15 minutes, or like my
Right.
brain is not fucking slowing down. I just gotta go run up a hill, or I just gotta go feel something heavy on my back, you know, and they're like, what the fuck is wrong with this guy? I was like, well, there's a list, okay, but also, but also, I just gotta go suffer for a minute, and then I can be another functioning human being, and I'll be like, cool, like we're all good now. Like, what were we talking about? You're like, "Ah, The Simpsons. I was like, okay, cool, we can do that. You know, it's like, I think it's so necessary, man, and for a long ass time, I thought I was fucking mental. You know, one of those people where it's like, oh, maybe I'm just absolutely batcrap crazy. But it's kind of cool speaking to people who's similar levels of insanity, you know, and you're like, oh, this sounds great, you know. I think the insane ones are among us are the actual sane ones, and the ones that think they're quote unquote normal who try and keep up with the Joneses. That to me is the finite definition of insanity, you know. But dude, have you got 40 more minutes or 30 more minutes? I got a little time. Do you want to keep talking?
Yeah, yeah, I got time.
My man, I'll shut
You
this
know,
down. I'll get you another one.
I got programming, laundry, and I want to watch the Super Bowl later. That's all I got today. So,
Oh, that's a ram day. That's another 16 hours right there.
fuck, man. Well, the programming's not going to take too long, but the laundry's the shiz, the killer. God
Yeah,
damn.
I hate it, man. I
And,
hate it.
and unfortunately, I don't own my house. It's a great house, but I don't have a laundry machine, so I got to
Mm,
go to
the
fucking
laundrette.
laundromat, which is a
Yeah.
whole other trip. Uh, and I'm sure you've been you've had the pleasure,
Spend some
but
nights in those bad boys, mate. You know what I mean? Like they are some
okay,
they are some weird, weird buildings, dude. Like you see some freaking sights walk into the
yeah. Where I live is not quite like that because I live in the mountains, so it's kind of a but it's still always interesting. The last few months ago, guy came in. He was a